Сон чуть нормально, Валентина Йосиповна?
Okay. Okay, a warm welcome to everyone to our online event, the forthcoming ACAA between the EU and Ukraine, what to expect. And ACAA stands for Agreement on Conformity Assessments and Acceptance of Industrial Products. Before I introduce our partners and the topic, I would like to share a few housekeeping rules with you. We do have simultaneous translations, English and Ukrainian. It is available. Please select the correct language button channel on the bottom of your software, EN for English and UK for Ukraine. Please mute yourself if you do not speak. You're welcome to ask questions in the Q&A part, either via the chat or by clicking on the raising hand button on your software. And also, last but not least, the event will be recorded. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome representatives of the government of Ukraine and of the EU. Taras Kachka, the Deputy Minister for Economic Development, Trade and Agriculture, and Ukraine's trade representative is with us. Ivan Nagornyak, the advisor to the Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic integration of Ukraine. And last but not least, a great pleasure also to welcome Jana Herzig with us here, the head of the Trade and Economic section at the delegation of the European Union to Ukraine. It's a further pleasure for me to welcome our cooperation partners in today's event, the European Business Association, the German-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the German Eastern Business Association, the Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the International Council of Business Administrations and Chambers in Ukraine. Also, a warm welcome to business representatives who participate today, Anatoly Pushka, the CEO of Ally Company, and Mikhailo Kotovenko, the CFO of Group SEB Ukraine. This long list of business associations and business shows already the great interest that business has in the topic of ACAA, or industrial visa-free regime, as it is often called in Ukraine. The German economic team, which I represent as deputy team leader, and the Institute for Economic Research and Policy Consulting in Kyiv, represented by my colleague, Ms. Veronika Movchan, the academic director, have recently prepared an in-depth study of the topic, which we would like to present and discuss with you today. Signing such a possible agreement has been identified a top priority for the government of Ukraine and can be a next step in intensifying economic relations between the EU and Ukraine. Such an agreement would reduce regulatory risks, bureaucratic costs for companies trading between the EU and Ukraine. As the work on the topic is ongoing, there remains a constant need for information by both companies and by policymakers, which we would like to address today. One is who and what goods would be covered by such an agreement. A second one is when is a signing realistic and what work must be completed before. And the last one, eventually, what would that mean for EU-Ukraine's trade development? I wish all of us an interesting discussion and hopefully many, many answers to these questions. Now, let me give the floor to Svetlana Mikhailovska from the EBA. Svetlana, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank our German partners, German economic team, and other colleagues for approaching EBA. EBA was really happy to support this initiative and survey about ACAA, because signing the ACAA agreement is not only the top priority for the government, but I would say for business community, it's also very, very important. The issue of bilateral cooperation between Ukraine and European Union in the field of technical regulation and standardization is discussed within the EBA for a long period of time, even before signing the DCFTA. And now it becomes even more important because eliminating trade barriers in industrial products is an important prerequisite for effective functioning of deep and comprehensive free trade agreement between Ukraine and EU. I'm not going to talk a lot about how important it is to have mutual recognition on the conformity assessment results, because it's clearly obvious. Signing ACAA agreement is top priority for EBA and our member companies, because it's not only about increasing Ukrainian exports of high value added goods. It's also about increasing the volume of international trade, which is really important. It's also about more fast placement of products at the market. Okay. Adaptation of technical regulation and implementation of European harmonized standards will ensure high quality and safety of industrial goods for buyers, increase competitiveness of Ukrainian products, and open new markets for exports, not only to EU countries. So I really hope that all requests and questions will be solved in the nearest future, and Ukrainian technical regulation and conformity assessment infrastructure will be fully in line to allow signing this ACAA agreement quite soon. We really do hope for this and looking forward. So thank you very much, and again look forward for constructive discussion today and results of the survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Svetlana, for your kind words of introduction. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mikhailo Nepran, the first Vice President of the Ukrainian Chamber for Commerce and Industry. Mikhailo, please.
Шановні колеги, доброго дня, шановна Ольга Віталіївна, шановний Тарасе, Роберт, Штефан, Гаррі, Олександр, Вероніка і всі наші друзі і колеги, які, як і ми, переймаємося проблемами так званого промислового безвізу. Я дуже радий брати участь у сьогоднішньому заході, який є, безперечно, дуже важливим. Адже ми і бізнес, для якого ми працюємо, мали чітке розуміння до того, на якому етапу шляху ми перебуваємо, і яких зусиль ми повинні ще докласти, аби ще впевненіше і швидше дістатися місця призначення, яким у сьогоднішньому контексті є справжні та безбар'єрні з точки зору законодавства умови доступу українських і європейських компаній на ринки Європейського Союзу та України. Я хотів би відзначити, що система торгово-промислових палат України дуже проактивно і системно підходить до питання підвищення обізнаності бізнесу щодо вимог Європейського Союзу та нових вимог українського ринку, а також до набуття бізнесом навичок із доведення відповідності продукції цим вимогам. У 19-20-х роках у рамках партнерського проєкту з німецьким товариством міжнародного співробітництва GSET сертифіковані тренери із палат провели для представників 250 промислових підприємств у 12 областях тренінги і майстер-класи з підготовки технічної документації для експорту до європейської спільноти. Зараз навчання в зв'язку із епідемією ковіда відбувається в онлайн-форматі. Ми маємо більше 20 сертифікованих консультантів із технічної відповідності, які надають підприємствам консультації та допомагають готувати технічні файли. Крім цього, при ТПП активно працює комітет з питань промислової модернізації та низка інших комітетів, до складу яких входять промислові підприємства. Вони проводять дослідження та розробляють рекомендації для уряду України. Також цього року ми плануємо вже 4-й раз провести конференції «Нова індустріалізація» або «Індустріалізація 4.0» і втретє – форум індустріальних парків. Ми активно співпрацюємо із європейськими проектами технічної допомоги та консультантами, які допомагають українському бізнесу адаптуватися до нових реалій, пов'язаних з імплементацією угоди про асоціацію і скористатися їхніми вигодами. Ми знаємо, що виробники багатьох видів промислової продукції достатньо здійснили внутрішній контроль виробництва і самостійно задекларували, що продукція відповідає технічним регламентам. Але ті виробники, яким необхідно залучати органи з оцінки відповідності, часто стримані у своїх намірах експортувати до Європейського Союзу, оскільки знають або здогадуються про високу вартість цієї процедури. І саме їм додало би амбітності та рішучості угода ACAA, яка би дала європейським покупцям сигнал про те, що вони можуть бути впевненості в безпечності української продукції, хоча її оцінили не європейські, а українські органи відповідності. Дорогі друзі, колись Мартін Лютер Кінг сказав класичну фразу «I have a dream» – «У мене є мрія». Ну, я не з точки зору проповідника, а з точки зору якраз віце-президента Національної палати хотів би сказати, що в мене теж є мрія, щоб Україна перестала бути аграрною продукцією, країною з аграрним експортом до європейської спільноти, а рано чи пізно знову повернула до себе індустріальні позиції в експорті і більше експортувала якраз промислової продукції, високотехнологічною, з високим рівнем доданої вартості, а не сільськогосподарської, як сьогодні. Тому ми готові і будемо наполегливо працювати в цьому непростому напрямі. Але користуючись нагодою, я хотів би ще раз подякувати нашим німецьким та українським колегам за проведення дослідження. Нам буде надзвичайно цікаво почути ці результати, і ми обов'язково включимося до обговорення. Тим більше, що я радий бачити тут наших колег з регіональних палат, які дуже активно працюють в цьому напрямку. Дякую за увагу.
Thank you very much. I would now like to give the floor to the fourth introductory part, Mr. Stefan Kegebein, the Regional Director, Eastern Europe from the German Eastern Business Association. Stefan, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. Dear Vice Minister Kachka, dear representatives of embassies, companies, associations, and chambers, I'm very pleased that so many of us have come together today to discuss an important topic in economic relations between Ukraine and the European Union. At the first glance, our topic today seems a very technical and small-scale one, but nevertheless, or precisely because of this, I guess, it is of great importance for everyday business between two trading areas, Ukraine and the EU. The large number of partners and interested parties also shows that the study being presented today has taken up obviously the right topic at the right time. The German Eastern Business Association is very happy to support the study and sees its involvement in it as an important contribution to the development of our bilateral economic relations. The fourth German-Ukrainian Business Forum, which we held last month in Berlin in March, and which we organized together with the German-Ukrainian Chamber of Industry and Commerce, showed how diverse our economic relations already are. At the same time, it also became clear that in many areas, especially in the topic of industrial cooperation, many options are still unused. It is therefore now the right time to conduct a targeted dialogue on the prerequisites for joint trade and investment, and to harmonize these foundations step by step. On the one hand, this dialogue must be conducted at the political level, as mentioned today. Here, the acting and responsible stakeholders have the duty to resolutely push forward the decisive issues. At the same time, I also see a contribution that the business side can deliver. We should jointly contribute our expertise here in order to establish a kind of feedback system in close exchange with the political decision makers and the administrations, and thus bring the voice of those directly affected into this dialogue. The German Eastern Business Association is happy to contribute to this process and its expertise and harmonization in the field of technical regulation, which we have been able to build up through various activities and working groups in the recent years. The study being presented today lists lots of progress and identifies some fields where the pace still needs to be stepped up. This gives us the opportunity to define joint fields of work in a very targeted manner. So business and politics from Ukraine and the European Union should use this opportunity, I guess. In this sense, we should see today's presentation of the survey as really a starting point, or starting point and opportunity to deepen our relations. So I wish today's event every success, and looking forward to our interesting discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kegebein, for your kind words of introduction. I would now like to move forward in the agenda and give the floor to Ivan Nagornyak, the advisor to the Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic integration of Ukraine, for his political remarks, his keynote speech. Please, Mr. Nagornyak, the floor is yours.
Доброго дня, вітаю всіх учасників сьогоднішньої презентації, дискусії. Це надзвичайно важлива тема, яка стоїть зараз в топ-пріоритеті діяльності уряду. Ви це можете побачити по тих планах, які офіційно публікуються урядом України. Я попередньо ознайомився із дослідженням, яке мені надіслали, і маю сказати, що воно містить ті речі, які, по суті, відповідають нашому баченню розвитку торгівельних відносин між Україною та Європейським Союзом. Насамперед, хотілося б також привітати одну з авторок дослідження, в неї сьогодні день народження. Я думаю, що це дуже хороший подарок, презент до якраз з нагоди дня народження. Отже, хотілося б насамперед сказати, що в минулому році уряд України активно працював над концепцією оновлення угоди про асоціацію між Україною та ЄС, а також інтенсифікації нашого двостороннього співробітництва. І основним нашим баченням було якраз розширення доступу України до 4 свобод ЄС: це вільний рух товарів, послуг, капіталу та осіб. Звичайно, що кожен з цих напрямків, він має велику кількість елементів. І угода АК є одним з основних елементів якраз збільшення доступу українських товарів до ринку Європейського Союзу. Під час підготовки нашої концепції ми проводили також діалог з українським бізнесом, з українськими експортерами. Він був у відкритому доступі, і велика кількість наших експортерів, особливо промисловців, вони зазначали угоду АКА як основний елемент якраз доступу їхньої продукції до ринків Європейського Союзу. Тому, власне, це для нас зараз важливим і є пріоритетним завданням. Крім того, хочеться зазначити, що ми бачимо угоду АКА в більш ширшому контексті, зокрема, в контексті якраз розширення доступу України до ринку публічних закупівель Європейського Союзу, і також до включення українських виробників до ланцюгів створення доданої вартості, зокрема європейських. Ми дуже детально вивчили презентований нещодавно Європейською комісією перегляд торгівельної політики, і бачимо, що цей перегляд також збігається з нашими планами щодо можливого в майбутньому розширення угоди АКА, зокрема в частині розширення на фармацевтичний ринок і забезпечення сталості ланцюгів постачання цієї продукції. Я ще раз вітаю всіх з цим чудовим дослідженням. І насамкінець хочу сказати, що Україна буде вживати всіх заходів для того, щоб в ті рекомендації попередні, які були опубліковані, які були презентовані попередньою оціночною місією щодо угоди АКА, вони є також зараз і проробляються Міністерством економіки. І я думаю, що незабаром ми почнемо якраз підготовку до уже самих переговорів щодо угоди. Дуже вам дякую за увагу.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nagornyak, for your keynote remarks. Now, I would like to move forward to the next item on our agenda, and that is actually the presentation of the study, the results of the study. And it's a great pleasure that Ms. Veronika Movchan, the academic director of the Institute for Economic Research and Policy Consulting, is with us today to present these findings, especially as we were just reminded, it is on her birthday. So also from our side here from Berlin, a very happy birthday to you, Veronika. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's my honor and pleasure to present today. And the topic is so important that, yes, it's a great gift for me that I can talk today on my favorite topic. So there's a wonderful audience of friends and colleagues and discuss this study with you today. Gary, shall you show the presentation? And while we are...
Yes, we will.
While we are still in this opening part, I will start with the motivation why we did it. The association agreement includes a lot of elements that envisage tight integration between EU and Ukraine and the opportunity for internal market treatment for Ukrainian products on the EU market and basically European products on the Ukrainian market. Please move to the next slide. And ACAA, Agreement on Conformity Assessment and Acceptance of Industrial Products, is definitely one of these important elements for integration. Recently, as many speakers before me said, that ACAA has become a top priority in the Ukraine-EU political agenda, and it is now the focus of our economic cooperation, one of them. In October 2020, we have the pre-session expert mission launched to evaluate Ukrainian readiness to open ACAA talks. And I'm very proud that German economic team with IER and together with our partners, European Business Association, German Eastern Business Association, and German Ukrainian Chamber for Industry and Commerce did the joint study to assess the importance of ACAA for business, to assess economic implications of ACAA. And I'm very happy that I present this study today. As Robert already mentioned, we will focus on the concept of ACAA, on the Ukraine's progress in its legal and institutional alignment. And I'm very happy to learn that we have already the first report with our ministry. And then we will discuss also the economic impact of ACAA, what our study showed. So let's start. The concept. This agreement, ACAA, is a very special case of mutual recognition agreements for conformity assessment that is offered by EU to its partners. Why it is so special? Because usually mutual recognition agreements are based on the strength of institutions and mutual trust and concluded between developed countries, countries with a high income. But ACAA, unlike other MRAs, standard MRAs, is based on the preliminary alignment of legal system and quality infrastructure of those between the partner country and EU. And it creates absolutely new dimension that strengthens the trust, even in the case that the country might not have as strong institutional background as the EU does. So far, European Union has ACAA only with Israel, which is actually not a middle income country, it's a high income country, and it's only for pharmaceutical products. The ACAA opportunity is open to multiple other countries. It is included in the association agreements of countries of Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova, and also it's mentioned for Mediterranean countries. But as far as we can judge now, the future Ukraine-EU ACAA will be the first ACAA that is actually concluded with a middle-income country. And it has an important image implications for Ukraine, but it also means that the task is very important and quite difficult. Basically, what we expect in the Ukraine-EU ACAA, this is next slide, please. We have ACAA as two parts. One hand, we have the framework agreement that recognizes the equivalence of conformity assessment, verification, accreditation procedure of Ukraine and EU, so that we have the identical systems. On the other hand, ACAA includes annexes that are setting out categories or sectors covered. For the first ACAA, so far it's agreed to have 3 out of 27 categories listed in the association agreement, and these categories are machinery, electromagnetic compatibility, and low voltage equipment. But other categories should be forthcoming because for one single product, it might be several directives, several categories applied. For example, it's very frequent that electromagnetic compatibility and machinery are working together, and there are also other non-covered by these first ACAA categories that should be implemented. And that means that wider the scope of ACAA, the better it is for the country. But still, this first ACAA is the most important. Why? Because it has this framework agreement, a recognition of equivalence. This is the highest priority for Ukraine now to make this first definite step. And if we are talking about the process, next slide, please, what steps are required? Basically, we can tentatively divide them into 5 categories, 5 steps. First is the alignment of legislation and quality infrastructure, which is on the side of Ukraine, and it is what Ukraine has been doing since 2014. Next stage is a progress review and recommendations, which is on the side of the EU, and we have this process started last year. Next step is implementation of recommendations. And basically here we go the cycle, step 2 and 3 can be repeated until we get the full alignment between Ukraine and the EU for legislation and for institutions. Then we have a final decision on readiness on the EU side, the official mission, and the formal conclusion of the ACAA, which is definitely the joint step. As I said already, we are now at the step 2 with pre-accession mission launched in October 2020, and the first report expected in April 21. Basically, as far as I understood in Ovan, it's already delivered to the ministry. Then we will have also a part of the recommendations regarding legislation, which this report covers. We will have also on-site missions that should evaluate actual institutions of Ukraine. Next slide, please. Then we are talking about legislation that is needed to be aligned. We have 2 parts, and I'm sure that all audience here knows that very well. That is a cross-sectional legislation that actually defines this general framework. And then we have a vertical legislation or sectoral that actually aligns EU directives, aligns Ukrainian legislation with the European directives on machinery, on electromagnetic compatibility, on low voltage equipment. In 2020, Ukraine completed one more round of legal harmonization, and we have these checks by the EU started formally. To our knowledge, legal alignment of Ukraine has been quite advanced, although some further fine-tuning, especially in the secondary legislation, will be needed. And we should understand that even if everything is okay now, we will need to keep these equivalence, the identity, for future rounds. For example, EU is now adopted and waiting for new regulation on market surveillance. It means that as soon as it comes in the European legislation comes into force, the Ukraine will have to proceed its alignment further. It's a dynamic process, but it's important to be sure that we started right. But a part of legislation that sounds more or less okay, we have also institutional alignment. It's the next slide, soundness of quality infrastructure. And here we are talking, can I have a please next slide? Thank you. And here we are talking about 5 core institutional elements of quality infrastructure. I'm sure you know them by heart now. It's standardization, metrology, conformity assessment, and market surveillance. Ukraine did a lot really a lot since 2014 to ensure that its institutions, its procedures are close to the European ones. And I think we achieved a lot. But I have some concerns that I will be happy to hear that I'm wrong or reconfirm them. It's about accreditation, conformity assessment bodies, and market surveillance. The most surprise for me was the accreditation that in March 2021, just a month ago, got a suspension of signatory status of European bilateral agreement with European Accreditation Authority for inspection and product certification. It's very important, and it's important to understand why it happened and how to renew the status as soon as possible. Then we have conformity assessment bodies that will suffer from this loss of accreditation, but also they need to develop a technical capacity and personal qualification, because actually these bodies are in the center of ACAA preparation, because it is the results of these bodies' conformity assessment that have to be mutually recognized. And we have market surveillance, very important, and for Ukrainian architecture is the newest element of conformity assessment, newest element of quality infrastructure, sorry. And here we also have a lot of issues related to technical capacity and personal qualifications. Interviews with business showed that it's one of the still probably weakest points for Ukrainian quality infrastructure. So my humble judgment is that institutional alignment will require further efforts, but I'm sure that with such a strong interest and support, that can be done and done effectively and efficiently. And before we go into the details of impact assessment, one slide about what is the role of ACAA covered products in current Ukraine-EU trade. According to our estimates in Ukraine experts, only about 800 million USD of products covered by ACAA. I want to highlight that here I took experts without re-experts, without tolling schemes. It is 5% of total exports to EU, and it's 43% of total Ukraine exports of ACAA covered products. Also, it's important that over the last 4 years, that is the data for which I have this export for final exportation data, Ukraine increased its exports by 89%. It's a quite strong growth rate and it's a very dynamic market. So far, the main products are ignition wiring sets, low voltage electric control boards, and washing machines. These three products account for about 1/3, 1/4, 27% of total exports of these products to EU. Imports is much more important. It's 4.4 billion, and it's 20% of the Ukrainian imports from the EU. This is a wide range. It's much less concentrated than exports, with top positions in wind power generators, TV receivers, and combined harvesters, threshers. So it is important and dynamic market. It is now more important for imports than for exports, but exports is growing fast. And in any case, EU is the main partner for ACAA trade among all countries, 43% for exports, 41% for imports. Other second, but much lower importance is actually now China. Thank you. And now we are talking to this analysis, probably the most important part of the AHK impact. Then we are thinking about what AHK can bring, what are the channels of AHK impact is lower trade costs. You should not spend on the third-party conformity assessment. The second one, after you did one for your domestic market, it's faster product placement. Once again, you do not go through the second round of procedures. And it's also lower regulatory risk and bureaucratic burden, because you do not do a lot of additional work. And you're sure that if your product is confirmed as safe on the one market, it is recognized on the other market. Although this idea is very clear, not all of the impacts can be easily quantified, especially then we are talking about, for example, new trade. Therefore, we did two elements. On the one hand, we did a quantitative assessment for trade costs and for the impact of ACAA on the current trade structure. And second, we did a qualitative assessment of wider economic implications of ACAA. And I will show you both. And we are very grateful for our partners because we got a very valuable information from company surveys complemented with interviews with stakeholders, and definitely we also use the desk research. First, trade costs is the next slide. Here is the essence. Definitely the survey showed much more, but we asked how many traders need third-party conformity assessment, because it's one of the issues that if you do not use third-party conformity assessment for issuing a declaration of conformity, basically you might not need ACAA. But 75% of exporters among surveyed companies and almost all importers said that they do use third-party conformity assessment. So probably even if it's not required by technical regulation, it's still required by partners. Currently, the average cost per certificate is about between 5,000 to 10,000 euros for exports and between 2,000 and 5,000 euros for imports. Based on this information and also on the assumed how often we need this certificate, because definitely many certificates are issued for the life cycle of the product and only verification, calibration are needed. And also based on the number of product varieties traded between Ukraine and EU, we were able to estimate trade costs. These are like approximate values because the conformity assessment is actually fixed cost. It is like entrance price to the market. But still we got some like proxies that can give a feeling how much the companies spend and how much both exporters and importers spend on this double certification. For exports, our assessment is $41 million US. That accounts about 5% of total export costs. And for imports, it's more in value terms. It's $103 million US, but it is a bit less than as a share of imports is at 2.4%. So trade costs are noticeable and are very much comparable with standard tariffs that you see for the products. Basically, it can double the trade costs for the company. But it's quite, as I said, it's quite special. It's an entry price mechanism. And we did the assessment using the next slide, please. We did the assessment of this impact, the elimination of these costs thanks to ACAA on current Ukraine-EU trade. We used a partial equilibrium analysis, and we received that the trade creation in terms of exports can be additional 28 million, and it's 3% of exports to EU, and for imports it's more, it's 110 million, but still 3% of imports. And you see that there is a lot of products that can benefit with them. In exports, it can be some parts for motors, it's presses, it's electric generating sets, meaning that Ukraine is included in production value chains, and also capital goods to EU. For imports, it's first of all capital goods like machinery for filtering, but it's also filters, it's electric sealing, or wall light fitting, and many others. Basically, we see that both exports and imports will benefit, but the impact will be quite small. but it's what we can quantify now. Now we are turning to the more important part, something that we cannot give you the quantitative assessment, but still probably generating more gains. Gary, can you please share? Thank you. So what are the wider implications of ACAA? And we will consider them separately for trading goods, for investments, and for trade. For trading goods, in addition to what we quantified the impact on the current trade structure, we expect here a much more important impact on trade of new products, and Mr. Nepran already mentioned that, because for ACAA, for these double conformity certification, it's important that we require this spending to be actually entry ticket for the market. And it's an advance payment, and you do not know how market will react on your products. So we expect that elimination of these costs will generate trade in new products not traded before, or trade also in products that are usually bought in small quantity and for which investing into the double conformity assessment for placing the products on the external market is not needed, is not interesting. And also we expect that new companies will start trading, especially smaller companies, because international experience shows that for larger companies, these costs are not high and they are ready to invest, while smaller traders might refrain entering the EU market if they have to pay entry price. Second, a part of the higher exports to the European Union, we may expect more exports to the third countries, because it will give us the important image gains, as the ACAA is a means that Ukrainian safety regulations are equivalent to the European safety regulations. The European Union actually confirmed that. And it will be an additional boost for manufacturing sales abroad to third countries. Plus, it means more imports from EU, basically also cheaper capital goods. And here we are coming to the impact on investments, because Ukraine imports now most of machinery, and the European Union is one of the important sources. So more imports of capital goods, cheaper, means also more domestic investments. Plus, it creates investments for foreign, creates incentives for foreign direct investments and inclusion in global value chains. Thanks to the lower regulatory burden, lesser cost for trade, and actually also understanding that the Ukrainian safety regulations are comparable, are the same actually with the European Union. Plus, we have faced the placement of a new and, what is important, innovative products on both markets. It's one of the very important impacts of all MRAs, all mutual recognition agreements, including ACAA, because for innovative products, especially with a quite short life cycle, it's important to enter the markets quickly. And then we need double conformity assessment, and it can take years. We are not talking about quickly. So Ukraine will have a better access to innovative products. Ukraine will be able to place innovative products on the European market much better and faster. And plus, it will have an important implication for the trade policy, because it not only improves the Ukrainian image as a partner, but it also can simplify the EU MRAs, because we already have been very thoroughly checked by the European Union, so the trust in the Ukrainian system will increase. Summing up what I presented, this is in the last slide. We have Ukraine that progressed a lot in the preparation for ACAA, for a topic which has a very high political importance, and we expect that Ukraine will get quite high evaluation of its legal achievements, and we expect much more rigorous discussion and probably some further efforts for preparation of quality infrastructure. Business confirmed that they are waiting for ACAA and that for now, without ACAA, they are bearing additional costs. Most companies use a third-party conformity assessment for trade with the EU, even if they might not be required to do that by law. And the average expenses are quite high, which is about 5,000 to 10,000 euros per certificate in exports and between 2,000 and 5,000 in imports. The ACAA will have a very wide economic implications, only partially quantifiable. And a part of the trade expansion due to lower trade costs and reduced regulatory risk, we expect easier start in new trade, both in new products and new smaller companies, cheaper imports of capital goods from EU, facilitating investments and actually contributing to higher productivity and faster economic growth. We expect higher potential for exports to third countries, incentives for FDI inflows, and last but not least is a positive political signal about Ukraine and simplification of inclusions of new emirates that can start this cycle once again with other important partners. That's all our findings, and thank you, and I will take the questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Veronica, for this very comprehensive presentation of our findings. Still, I'm sure a lot of questions remain, and I'm very glad that we have representatives both of the government of Ukraine, of business, of the EU, who may provide some further information on this process, maybe some new insights. That's why we have now a panel discussion on the agenda, and I would like to give the floor to the moderator of this panel discussion, to Alexander Markus, the chairman of the board of the German-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to moderate this panel. Alexander, please take over from here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Robert. Thank you very much, Mr. Polushkin. We are very well on time, and thank you very much to Veronica, to the very interesting presentation, and congratulations also concerning your birthday from our side. I would like, as we have a very tense time slot, I would like to begin directly with our small panel discussions. I would like to introduce the members and would ask them to switch on their camera. First of all, I'm very happy to say hello to Jana Herzig from the European delegation. Hello, Jana. Then Taras Kachka. Hello, Taras. We are very happy that you are here also from the Ministry of Development of Trade, Agriculture, and Economy, the other way around, Economy, Trade, and Agriculture. And then we have from SEB, Mikhailo Kotovenko. I hope he is.
Hello, hello.
Yes, Mr. Kotovenko. Nice to see you here. And last but not least, Anatoly Pushkar from LILCC and the association Ukr Elektrokabel. Hello, Mr. Pushkar. Добрый день. You hear us also? Okay, wonderful. Then we saw the results of the survey of our partners, German Economic Team, where EBA, the Eastern Committee, and we participated. We are very thankful for this survey and for the results. Now we will have two, points of view. On the one hand, first we will have a political point of view, and then the point of view from the business. So first of all, dear Jana, we have heard about the importance of the ACAA agreement. I don't call it ACAA. I prefer call it ACAA. Maybe it's wrong, but ACAA is for me something that's different. Do you have already some information about the preliminary results of the pre-assessment mission? Or what is the position of the Commission concerning this question at the moment? And please, we have to keep in time 4 minutes, not more.
Yeah, hello, good morning, everybody. I would also congratulate the birthday, and I hope you will have a lot of energy and good health to produce more studies, because they are always spot on and very useful. So wish you all the best. Maybe Alexander, thank you for the question. Before I go in to comment on the pre-assessment phase, I would like to recall the general framework of the discussions we are having.
Sorry, Anna, there is some background noise there. Would those who are not speaking switch off the microphones, please? That is very helpful. Yes, please go on.
Is it okay now? Is it okay now? Yeah. So just to recall the background of the discussions which we have on the ACAA, and they are basically evolving against the background of the deep and comprehensive agreement liberalization, which brought increase in bilateral trade, and we are basically over 50% by the end of 2020. So we see that the importance of the trade flows is really gaining over the last years. And we also saw from the study which Veronika presented that the ACAA potentially would have some tangible evidence or potential impact on the trade flows even further. So on the pre-assessment, I can tell you that this pre-assessment was a step which has been agreed with the Ukrainian government as an intermediate step to basically assess the readiness of Ukraine in view of the negotiations of an ACAA. And the path to an ACAA is very complex and a very challenging exercise. I think I don't need to elaborate on this. You saw from Veronika's presentation what all needs to be done in order to get to the final goalpost. But I can guarantee that on the EU side, we are doing our best to basically fast track the preparatory work for negotiations, while we are, of course, ensuring the integrity of the process. And what I mean by that is that we cannot make any shortcuts, yeah? Because we are talking about safety of products, safety of consumers. So in all of this exercise which we are doing, we have to secure that you have a system in place which is functioning and which is basically working as we would expect. So we see that this is really quite a heavy and challenging exercise, but nevertheless we are moving in the right direction. And then this pre-assessment was meant to look at both the legal alignment and implementation, as well as on the functioning of the national quality infrastructure with a view of launching the formal negotiations. And this pre-assessment has two subsequent phases, and I think Veronika called it in the study components. Well, we call it phases, but still it's the same logic, that in the first phase, you basically look at the part how the experts should assess how the legal alignment has been done and how Ukraine has really made the legislative efforts, both in the horizontal and sectoral legislation part. Related to the three sectors, always like the low voltage machinery and electromagnetic compatibility. And then the second phase, or component, if you prefer, should then look at how the implementation of the aligned legislation translates into practice, and how the institutional capacity and the framework function in the national quality infrastructure. And this second phase will be then done by TAEX missions, 7 TAEX missions. In practice, it means that EU member states experts would come to Ukraine, and they will look at the system, how it functions, if it's in place, and if everything falls into place. So the first phase of the legislative alignment was launched in October 2020, and I guess it didn't go unspotted, because even our greatest leaders have referred to the pre-assessment in the statement from the EU-Ukraine summit. So you can see that this this exercise really was a marking point in this ACAA process, and it also shows clearly that the political drive and interest behind the whole discussion is really relatively prominent in that case. And the first phase, I mean, this first component of the pre-assessment is now reaching the final stage, and basically we should present our findings to the Ukrainian side. And what we can say already now, I mean, based on the findings of the midterm report, is that Ukraine has already undertaken a huge effort to comply with the EU rules by transforming the EU legislation basically in record speed. So this is something we can already say, but we can also say that the large parts of the relevant legislation on how conformity assessment works overall in Ukraine have been adopted and now reflect the major idea of product safety according to the EU provisions. So this is, let's say, the good positive finding message I can share at this stage. On the other hand, we see that also the midterm report has shown that Ukraine still needs to improve in certain areas, and we have identified some areas specifically, but I believe that it would be fair to address these areas first of all with our counterparts, meaning the Ukrainian side Ministry of Trade and Economics, before we share our findings in public. So I'm afraid I cannot give you more details going beyond this. Hopefully there will be another ACAA event where we could share more broadly, but this is also something we would discuss shortly with the Ministry of Trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're actually already out of time, so.
Okay, so then just one minute. I will not go than that. I just wanted to mention that for the shortcomings, we are of course providing technical assistance, quite prominent and unprecedented to Ukraine in all areas, like be it on standardization, be it on market surveillance. And I think also the EU member states are supporting quite heavily Ukraine. I mean, for example, the trainings we have heard in the beginning, which basically managed to train and educate one generation of Ukrainian experts on TBT. So we will, of course, continue with this support and also help Ukraine to set up the system and bring it closer to the ACAA goalpost. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jana. Thanks a lot. Yeah. So I would like to go on and give the word to Taras. We know each other for some years. Taras Kachka, Deputy Minister in the Ministry here in charge. Taras, the word is yours.
Дякую. Я з огляду на те, що більшість учасників дискусії є україномовними, буду говорити українською. Хоча дуже полюбляю дискусію з колегами з Європейського Союзу на тему АКА або ACAA, як Олександр абсолютно правильно говорить, тому що все ж таки це ACAA, акронім. І я би хотів би підтримати все, що говорила і Вероніка, і Яна. Насправді у нас є цілісний проект по цій угоді. Я би хотів зробити лише кілька важливих застережень, які насправді важливі. По-перше, проект укладення цієї угоди зараз це намагання все ж таки хоч якось компенсувати згаяне десятиліття, як мінімум, тому що і Україна, і Європейський Союз проявили надзвичайну інерцію до 2019 року в підготовці до укладення цієї угоди, і насправді ця угода мала всі можливості бути укладеною ще в кінці нульових, або всередині 10-х, але точно не в 20-х роках. З іншого боку, і українська економіка теж еволюціонувала, і це найбільш важливо, тому що окрім сприяння торгівлі, про що говорили Вероніка і Яна, угода ACAA важлива для української промисловості, для того, щоб українську промисловість визнала європейська і світова промисловість теж, визнала з точки зору, тому що визнання документів, які підтверджують безпечність промислової продукції, тобто визнання дотримання вимог технічних регламентів, це формальний бік, це як диплом, формальний бік того, що в основі цієї відповідності лежить інженерне мислення, яке працює в тих самих рамках, що і європейське. І тому для мене ця угода має набагато більше значення, ніж ніж формальний вплив цієї угоди. І другий аспект, ще не менш важливий, де нам ще треба буде подолати багато інерції, це реальна реструктуризація, спрощення і посилення ефективності нашої системи інфраструктури якості. Всі наші органи оцінки відповідності, Національний орган стандартизації, Національне агентство акредитації України, вони всі перейшли на європейські правила роботи, але очевидно, що на ринку, особливо серед органів оцінки відповідності, в нас є дуже багато інституцій, які працюють лише на папері. Ми мали рік тому досить цікаву історію, мало пов'язану з угодою ACAA, а пов'язано з костюмами хімічного захисту, коли з'ясувалося, що на найвищий рівень захисту костюму, відповідно до міжнародного стандарту, який впроваджений в Україні, акредитовано є близько 20 лабораторій, і лише 6 з них частково мають обладнання для перевірки на відповідність цьому стандарту. І жодна з лабораторій не може провести, жоден з органів оцінки відповідності не міг провести дослідження, необхідні на підтвердження відповідності на найвищий рівень безпечності, який був потрібний тоді лікарям. І це якраз такий лакмус, і я думаю, що те, до чого ми зараз прийшли в цю хвилину, це ми прийшли в нашому двосторонньому в діалозі з ЄС, це до усвідомлення трьох речей. По-перше, що угода є можливою, тому що рівень відповідності нашого законодавства вимогам ЄС є дуже високий. По-друге, що нам потрібно налагодити двосторонній діалог для того, щоб зрозуміти, як насправді Україна інтегрується в європейську систему роботи цих органів. В системі технічного регулювання там є багато підготовчої міжнародної двосторонньої роботи. І третє, вже останнє речення, це насправді ми підійшли до реальної оцінки нашого ринку послуг з органів оцінки відповідності. І тут, я думаю, теж буде дуже багато додаткового позитиву для українського бізнесу, оскільки певне спрощення, таке очищення цього ринку, воно теж дасть поштовх для того, щоб зрозуміти, чи якісні, неякісні послуги надаються, їхня вартість і так далі. Це системна зміна, яка матиме місце. Тому в наступні 1,5 роки, я думаю, що у нас буде дуже багато активної роботи, і яка завершиться успішно укладенням цієї угоди. Дякую.
Дуже дякую. Thank you very much, Taraf. I don't want to mix up the translation here. Thank you very much for this outlook, and I can really confirm. I remember when we were sitting together with you in December 2019 and discussing with our automotive component manufacturers the importance of ACAA, even for companies with foreign capital producing here in Ukraine. And this cannot be underestimated, really. Yeah, now let's go to business. And I would like to introduce now Mikhailo Kotovenko from SEB Group. SEB, I looked it up in Wikipedia, means Société d'Embouteillage de Bourgogne. Very, very interesting. It sounds like these old German names in acronyms we have today. And it is actually one of the largest consortiums in producing small applicants and kitchen applicants and appliances, and has so famous brands like Rups, Mulinex, Roventa, Tefal, and even German WMF, VMF, a very, very German, well-known brand in Germany. Yes. How important, dear Mikhailo, is ACAA for SEB, and when do you assume that this could become realistic for being implemented in Ukraine from your experience? And please also 4 minutes only, and I will show a little slide for only 1 minute left if you are running out of time. Okay.
Thank you, Alexander. Hello, everyone. So Group SEB, it's more like French SEB. It's exactly German VMF, but it's also Roventa, who is coming from Erbach, although it's a part of the Group SEB for many years. And for us, it's very important now on the side of importers, because in Ukraine, we have a state service on food safety and consumer protection, and they're very subjective in their approach for the conformity mark, which in Ukraine is the so-called tri-leaf. And if there is no tri-leaf on the product itself, but it is on the instruction or on the packaging, most probably you will get a fine. It's considered by the state consumer protection body that it's violation of the law. For all the importers, sometimes for the retailers. So it could be also the situation when on the small domestic appliance, there is no space to put this tri-leaf on the device itself. But then again, instruction and packaging, it doesn't work like that. So also could be a situation when you have to unpack the device to put this conformity mark, and it changed completely the marketing side of the product, and it's another problem. Also, another issue is that there is no actually appeal procedure if you get the fine from state consumer protection body. The only one appeal procedure, you have to go to the court and start the court proceedings, which takes time, resources, you have to engage lawyers, and so on and so forth. Last case we faced this year for a few times. As a big company working everywhere in Europe, we could take some products from another market, which were not intended initially for Ukraine. And again, not having this tri-leaf printed at the factory. Now, we saw a few times this year when the state consumer protection body is liaising with the customs. And at the moment when truck is arriving to Ukrainian territory, they just unpack few products. They see there is no tri-leaf, and they block for 1-2 months the truck with the cargo, and they also issue another fine. When we ask them, okay, guys, sorry, but the product is not yet even officially crossed the border of Ukraine, the custom territory. Say, yes, probably we were too harsh, but now we cannot undo the fine, so please go to court. So instead of investing money into the creation of new jobs in Ukraine, investing money in something which will really do added value in Ukraine, we have to invest money into, in a way, living with bureaucracy, going to the court, trying to cancel with the help of the court these fines we're getting. And for us, and for many other importers, the ACAA agreement, what we also discuss on European Business Association every time, it would allow, first of all, to harmonize Ukrainian legislation with European directives. Will remove this subjectivity of the state bodies in Ukraine. It will give opportunity not to basically double the procedure of conformity assessment if the product is also already has been bearing the European CE, the conformity mark. In the end, it will improve the speed of the import, the custom procedure, and basically help Ukraine
Ukraine to become a part of European Union. If something was certified in Ukraine, there is no sense to recertify it again or reconfirm the conformity in Ukraine. So to make the story short, this is it.
Thank you very much, Mikhailo. Thank you very much. Very clear, and I can only confirm these bureaucratic procedures. We know them also from German business. The next speaker is an Ukrainian representative or a representative of Ukrainian or business, or as I like to put it, because we are all, most of all our members are Ukrainian companies, Ukrainian legal persons, but a company on association with mostly Ukrainian capital. Anatoly Petrovich, the floor is yours, please. If you switch on your camera. Hello, are you with us? Yes, wonderful. My question to you would be, you are also the president of an Ukrainian electronic cable manufacturer association. What role plays ACAA for your business? And considering that, for example, in the automotive component sector, you need additional audits, for example, for cable, for electronic cable from the OEMs, from the original equipment manufacturers, not only the official confirmation certificates.
Дякую за наданий можливість виступити.
Немножко громче, если вы можете громче говорить.
Дякую за можливість надати інформацію. Що я хочу сказати? Що раніше ми були десь на початку, ми були проти цієї угоди, як українські виробники, але на протязі часу, там років двох, ми зовсім змінили своє ставлення до цього, і ми вже десь 2 роки підтримуємо цю угоду. І також з цими співпрацюємо з іншими асоціаціями, з Міністерством економіки, з Євробізнес асоціацією, для того, щоб цю угоду найшвидше підписали. Як ви знаєте, в цій угоді йдуть перші 3 регламенти, і 2 з них це наші регламенти, і 3 це низьковольтний регламент, який ми буквально в останній вагон заскочили. Тому ми чекаємо підписання цієї угоди. Що вона нам дає? Ця угода, вже казали, вона спрощує нам процедури, які ми зараз проходимо і в Україні, і такі ж процедури проходимо в Європі. Це і час, і гроші, і, у нас забирає достатньо. Тому, якщо буде підписано договір АК, і ми зможемо ставити, маркувати свою продукцію ЦЕ, тоді і буде наші ці сертифікати українські прийматися в Європі, звісно, це спрощує набагато наш експорт. Але є такі, зараз відповім на ваше питання, по поводу Original Equipment Manufacturer, ви це питали, я зрозумів. Хоч більшість заводів в Україні, які виробляють жгути для автомобільної промисловості, вони закордонні, але є і українські. І у нас там немає ніяких питань щодо додаткового аудиту. Додатковий аудит – це не загальноєвропейська прихідь, це потрібно робити для замовника. Якщо ми хочемо з цим замовником працювати, значить ми повинні виконувати їх внутрішні завдання. Якщо ми можемо це зробити, значить ми будемо йому продавати. Це у нас і в Україні, це вже життя так, ми це нормально сприймаємо. Тому, що стосується Original Equipment Manufacturer, значить ми за, і там ніяких технічних бар'єрів, нема там ті ж самі стандарти, по яким ми зараз і працюємо. Що стосується нашого виробництва, так ми зараз, перша асоціація в Україні, яка перейшла на європейські стандарти. І сьогодні наші організації фінансують свої випробувальні лабораторії, і у нас сьогодні на акредитації вже останній стандарт в НАУ, останній. Уже в наші всі лабораторії, наша асоціація, а також є лабораторії не нашої асоціації, які повністю можуть забезпечити оцінку відповідності по всім європейським стандартам у нас в Україні. Але є проблема. Є проблема, яку я вже піднімав питання в Мінекономіці, коли було, піднімав питання. Є така організація, є якась ліцензія, не якась, а от 17 органів сертифікації Європи об'єдналися, і разом з ними об'єдналася асоціація Європа Кабель, і вони запровадили, дякую, бачу, одну хвилину, запровадили ХАР. І на це, позначка ХАР, і на цю позначку треба брати ліцензію. І в цій угоді, яка зараз, яку ми зараз розглядуємо, там зовсім про це немає. Якщо ми зможемо ставити позначку «ЦЕ», ми не зможемо поставити позначку «ХАР». Вона не прописана, але без ХАР ми 90% кабельної продукції не зможемо продавати на ринку. Це технічний, чисто технічний бар'єр. І цей ХАР видуманий на ті стандарти, не якісь нові стандарти, не нові методи випробовування. Це все те, що прописано в європейських стандартах. Ми їх виконуємо, але наш НАУ, наше Міністерство економіки повинно вирішити питання, що треба ще брати якусь ліцензію ХАР. Тому ця угода, якесь доповнення має бути, і цей ХАР повинен бути прописаний. Якщо ми виконали всі зобов'язання Європейського Союзу по стандартизації відповідності, так той ХАР повинен автоматично надати право ліцензію для маркування нашого кабеля, нашому НАУ. Дякую.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pushka. This was a proposal to the Ministry for Development of Economy, Trade and Agriculture. Taras, did you hear that?
Так, всі ці питання, вони є абсолютно правомірними і правильними. Тут це те, чим я завершив свій виступ, що насправді ця угода значно оптимізує внутрішню роботу української системи контролю якості, тобто від урядових до самих надавачів послуг, органів оцінки відповідності. Тут, безумовно, для мене це один з найголовніших, угода є найголовнішим інструментом, власне, нормалізації роботи цього ринку. Тому що ми його успадкували від Радянського Союзу, і зараз, власне, в полі, тобто на рівні, власне, підприємства, ми бачимо, як накладаються нові європейські правила і старі традиції, і рудименти старих радянських підходів. І тому я дуже радий, що ми фактично в рамках цієї роботи цього року будемо мати ще он-сайт місії, тобто з фізичною присутністю європейських експертів в органах оцінки відповідності, в агентстві акредитації, для того, щоб перевірити, як це працює, для того, щоб ми могли потім міністерством і урядом відкоригувати роботу на цьому рівні низовому. Дякую.
Анатолій Петрович, якщо ви це ще не зробили, я пропоную, що ви окремий лист пишіть з вашої пропозиції ще раз у міністерстві, тому що там багато деталей, насправді багато деталей.
Я вам напишу, я не напишу і поважаємо Катці нашому напишу. Сам вам трьом напишу.
Thank you very much for participants of our panel. Our time is through, and Now I return moderation to the German economic team. Thank you very much for possibility to be moderator today here for half an hour. Robert.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alexander, for this very professional moderation. We have now the possibility to have some questions that you may have for the panelists. So maybe we ask now for questions among the audience. Is there something you would like to discuss?
There is a question in the chat, I see.
Alexander, maybe you will moderate the questions. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, if they're only in the chat, I can do this. There is a question concerning the resolution about technical relations for noise radiation. Taras, we have discussed this also. Do you remember? We are waiting for additional decision from the Cabinet of Ministers. You answered that there will be a postponement of this technical regulation until the end of this year. Is that coming or?
Yes, it's still on agenda, so it waits its time to be adopted. So that's it's just a bureaucratic delay in the Cabinet of Ministers, but the decision is there. So that's
very important because all the big importers that were compliantly, they stopped importing. And they stick to your rules.
Yeah, I'm aware, so that we discussed it. Yes, so I'm here as well, just like verifying the information. So I'm not an owner of this decision. So that's why I cannot promise you that it will be adopted. So I just follow this and then try to push the final adoption.
Yes, please. So if we can support this with any other action, letters, discussions, roundtable, please tell us, because this is really very important for our importers of heavy equipment, which is in most cases also noisy. And if you want to implement your big street construction program, this equipment is needed, whatever country it comes from. But there is another question. From the there is a first question from Josef Graf, representing Porsche Ukraine. When the ACAA is expected to come into force for these first three spheres mentioned? Does anyone here is ready to make a guess?
Yeah, I will reply because I see this question. Yes, so that's. So on eco design, yes.
Taras, could you please repeat what you said? The sound is not very well.
Okay. I think that the deadline now, also that the estimation now is that it will be the end of next year, so that this year is for all assessment missions and the next year for formal procedures. So it's still quite big, quite long period of time, but at least the horizon is feasible. Yeah, so that's
Maybe can I just add? I think the timeline will also depend on how fast Ukraine would be able to basically bring into order all the recommendations and the shortcomings which will be mentioned in this pre-assessment phase. Because I'm pretty sure that when we reach the second component where we will discuss the functioning, I think Veronica also mentioned you expect some shortcomings there. It is important that if you want to have it done quickly and you want to advance to the next phase or the negotiations of the ACAA, then that these shortcomings are basically addressed. For example, if you talk about the capacity or insufficient staffing of people, it also depends how politically important it is and how fast you find the people to have the inspectors, for example. So I guess this will pretty much depend on the homework to be done in this period, which will lead to the real negotiations.
Okay, thank you, Madiana. The next question is concerning the toy industry, toy manufacturing industry, asked by the Ukrainian Toy Industry Association. They ask whether their products will be included into the second phase, as they are not included into the first one. Is there anyone who can answer this? I'm not sure whether...
Я думаю, що насправді зараз активно ведеться дискусія щодо наступних секторів. В нас є і фармацевтика, і з боку ЄС ми вже чули по морському обладнанню, іграшки в нас давно адаптовані. Тобто, в принципі, я думаю, що перша хвиля – це, в принципі, сам факт укладення угоди. Далі тут ми візьмемо всі можливі технічні регламенти, які в нас впроваджені. Тому шанси є достатньо високі.
Дякую. So next question is concerning, I don't understand these abbreviations, ROW, HS and eco-design regulations considered for ACAA. Without them, it is not really possible to use other regulations like EMC and LVD for electronics, asked by Oleg Krysalov.
Я якраз таки маю відповідь на це питання, хоча сам не до кінця, точніше, я зрозумів всі ці абревіатури. Справді, ми в роботі зараз попередньої місії вийшли на те, що вимоги щодо екодизайн, еколейбелінг, матеріалу, які контактують з продукцією, всі ці документи, які напряму не були записані в плані дій по АКА, для того, щоб нормально відбувався обіг продукцією. І тому вони включені в роботу. Тому абсолютно легітимне питання, правильне питання. Ми з експертами це теж проговорили і зараз працюємо над пришвидшенням впровадження вимог щодо еколейбелінгу, екодизайну і інших елементів, які побіжно пов'язані з угодою для того, щоб вона була дієвою. Тут абсолютно правильне питання, що якщо ми обмежимося EMC і LVD, то цього недостатньо для обігу продукції. Тому тут абсолютно коректне питання, і воно є вже в звіті експертів висвітлено, вивчено, і ми його проробили дуже детально.
Great that you understand these abbreviations. This is really tech speak. So the next question is in Ukrainian language. I translate. The question is whether there has been any analysis of the situation has been done, whether ACAA what impact will ACAA have on the trade balance between for Ukraine in the case of the signing? Yes, this is your question, Veronica, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the question. Basically, answer is no, because it's not really possible at this stage. We have quantified, estimated the impact on current trade, which I showed will be small, and yes, it will bear the high increase in imports than in exports. But here we have so large non-quantifiable part that I would not say that the results of the assessment on current trade give any hint about impact on trade in general. We have expect a lot of new trade coming for products that were not traded before, and we expect much more exports to the third countries. And at the same time, we expect intensified imports from EU for products that did not show up before because it was costly to enter these conformity assessment market. So no, and I don't think that it is feasible now. It will be feasible only ex post.
Thank you very much, Veronica. So there is another question. I have to look at our colleagues. Do we still have some minutes? Robert, yes, okay. I see thumb up. Is Ukraine, the abbreviations, just ROHS is restriction of hazardous substances in electrical electronic equipment. A tongue breaker, my dear friend. The next question is from Artur Zubritsky. Artur, you are asking, is Ukraine planning to sign an ACAA-like agreement with the UK in the context of Brexit? Taras, is this something where you may know?
Питання просте, воно є абсолютно автоматичним на стадії, коли Британія остаточно зрозуміє свою політику щодо технічного регулювання, тому що Британія виходить з системи Європейського Союзу, і це стосується і митниці, і безпечності харчових продуктів, і технічного регулювання, що цей рік Британія там власне формулює свою політику, і як тільки в них з'явиться це внутрішнє переконання, як це організовано, ми зрозуміло, що теж це питання ставимо на порядок денний з британцями.
Okay, I have to say thank you very much in the chat. So at the moment, I do not see any other questions.
Yeah. Alexander, maybe can I have one question out of interest?
Yes.
It came to my mind when we listened to the contributions from the business. Would I realize that sometimes the business sees the solution, or I mean the need for ACA because they have problems which we would call like red tape problems. For example, at the customs, the example which we heard. Do you think that you need an ACA to fix these problems at customs? Because for me, there are some things which should be fixed through some normal, let's say, normal procedures, normal administrative setup, legislation, or proper functioning of the customs. So I wonder if you need to really wait for 2 years, or I mean, 2 years plus, to have an ACA in place to basically address these shortcomings. So I mean, out of interest, I would be curious to hear some views on that.
Is this a question to Taras? The very political question.
The answer is quite simple for this. So that it's sorry, it will be it's like with sense of humor. So, but this is the only way to speed up signing of ACA. So that's it's
okay.
It's absolutely true. So that's there should be an understanding of interest for signing of ACA, and now I think that we have an opportunity to also to fix all these, let's say, shortcomings due to all this development of system. So that's it's also was ease this justified. That's why I think that we will be more flexible on this. So thank you.
Yeah, I suppose that Janer posed his question to some extent, at least rhetorically, because as we all know, with the association agreement and the DCFTA, there is nothing more easier than saying, well, you know, we can't do anything else because, you know, we have international obligations. So, and that is good so, because we have other partners in the European Union at the moment where we have very interesting negotiations, because they are not sticking to those things they have signed, I don't know, 3 months ago or 6 months ago. If we had, yes, there is a question. У вас є питання, Анатолій Петрович. Включіть мікрофон, будь ласка, якщо ви хочете. Ми не чуємо. Мікрофон включіть, будь ласка. Так,
я включаю. Значить, я хочу тут доповнити, щоб імпортери знали, що є технічні регламенти, продукція якої має супроводжуватись декларацією. От. І тому повинні імпортери, так як і ми експортери, знати, ну у нас однакові правила, що є технічні регламенти, от, і продукція, якщо вони йдуть на митницю, повинна мати декларацію. Є продукція, як от ЛВЖ, низьковольтний регламент, там не потрібно декларацію. От, але є таке, це одне питання для імпортерів, що не розуміли, і наші повинні розуміти. А є ще друга ситуація. Не знаю, як там в Європі, а в Україні є таке поняття, як секторальні плани по перевірці ринковим наглядом якоїсь продукції. От як зараз кабельна продукція знаходиться в секторальному плані, і цілий рік цю продукцію можуть перевіряти ринковий нагляд на митниці. Митниця може запрошувати і так далі. Це так от і у нас є такі випадки, як коли ми експортуємо. Тому імпортери повинні це знати. А так, договір АКА дуже спрощує імпорт в Україну. Тому що не треба бігати по Укрметр-Тест-стандарту, платити гроші, це вже Вікторія казала. От, платити гроші, чекати час, поки буде підтвердження і так далі. Це вони спрощує, але є закони європейські, які діють зараз в Україні.
Так, дякую, розуміємо. So, there is another comment from Oleg Kresolov that you still need the declaration and in Europe and in Ukraine. But from my point of view, I would like to close the discussions, return to Robert. A wonderful, very interesting discussion and event. Thank you very much for the initiative of the German economic team that we could participate here.
Yes, thank you very much, Alexander, also for the moderation, much appreciated. I think we could discuss for hours this fascinating topic, but unfortunately our time is up. So let me thank all the presenters, especially Veronica, of course, our cooperation partners, the audience also for asking so many questions, Taras and Jana. I think the event gave a very good summary of the current stance of the discussion, but what is for sure is that this will continue with us. This topic will be continuing with us for the next future. From our side, and I also think I speak for the institute that Veronica represents, we will continue to keep track of future developments. We will continue to monitor the progress in our advisory work. And we will make this public, these results of our research to our stakeholders, to our cooperation partners. Please also check our website with a study, with a forthcoming study that we presented today. So that's something that I can say from our side. We will be part of this discussion going forward and hope for, of course, that ACAA will become reality in the near future. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Thank you very much for this event. Again, thanks to all, and we will stay in touch. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.